shit. That's what I'm talking about.
Wait! Okay, now, from the beginning.
I think.
Yes. Hi, Steve. Hi, everyone. My name's Adam Goods, and welcome to the Goods Oil. Today on our show, I'm joined by Steve Hodgkinson, the CIO of the Victorian Department of Health and Human Services. Steve, welcome to the show.
Great to be here.
Yes. Steve, now you've been the CIO there since 2014, and you lead a team of 220 plus staff that delivers projects totaling $60 to $80 million per annum. Did you ever imagine you'd end up here? And where did your IT career all start for you?
Yeah, thanks, Adam. Look, did I ever imagine it? No, not really. Although it's always been kind of in the back of my mind that a CIO role was where I was heading. I started out doing an information systems degree at Otago University in New Zealand, and then worked in the Reserve Bank as a systems analyst. And then I did a doctorate at the University of Oxford, where the research topic was actually all about CIO functions in large multi-business corporations. That was back in the early to late 80s. And it's taken me until, 4.5 years ago to actually get a CIO role. So you can argue that I've had an interest in this for a long time and just not being very good at prosecuting it.
Yeah. And was it always your aim to become a CIO? Is that something career-wise you imagine yourself and you end up doing?
One way or another, driving digital transformation in organizations has been what I've been doing most of my career as a consultant or in a variety of executive roles. So, answer is yes, really, in terms of the way CIO roles have evolved these days.
Yeah, excellent. And so a little bit about where you're working now. So not long ago, the department ditched Lotus Notes for email and calendar, ending 2 decades of relying on this platform. Was this a long time approach in the making, and how is the uptake going?
Yeah, look, it's been a long journey. So on the one hand, on the basic infrastructure, SOE, standard operating system side, when I first started the role in 2014, we were still running Windows XP. Wow. And as you say, Lotus Notes took quite a few years to get through the upgrade to Windows 8 across a large portfolio of users. And then 2 years ago, we developed a collaboration strategy, which is all about improving the way our workers work in terms of collaborating and sharing information across the organisation. Yep. And the core part of that was the business case to fund the migration from Lotus Notes to Office 365. Yep. So that's been a project that's in its implementation phase, taken the last 12 months to implement across 11,500 users, 63 locations all around the state. Yeah, massive program of work.
Yep. And the uptake on it's going well? Everyone's on board now, or?
Yeah, pretty good. We've taken a strategy of rolling the whole of Office 365 to all of the users under 8 ways of working scenarios. So sharing and finding information, getting up to speed, collaboration, streamlined meetings, team collaboration, flexible working, corporate communications, and idea generation. So those are the scenarios that we've been driving through the workforce using the full Office 365 suite. So we have 11,500 people on it, run 300 training sessions and 120 executive meetings. Wow. Been extensive deployment. We now have seen already actually over 12% reduction in daily emails sent during the program. We have 4,000 active users of Teams, 4,200, more than that actually, Skype users. And we're seeing strong month-to-month growth and adoption and usage. Around about a quarter of all interactions now come from Outlook Mobile, which has been a big change in terms of the mobility of our workforce enabled by the new platform. So far so good. But we're really just now at the start line of a significant transformation of the way the way our people worked. And in a sense, all of this work has just got us to the point where they now have the tools to be able to work differently.
Right, and this transformation, Steve, you have a strategy there called Platform and Agile, and that underpins your transformation at the department. Can you tell us what that looks like and the success you've had so far?
Yeah, sure. Platform plus Agile is the notion. So that's an idea that before I started this role, I worked for Ovum as their head of public sector globally. So I spent a lot of time, 8 years, consulting and advising to government agencies all around the world. And that was during the period when cloud computing, agile methods and mobile platforms really took off. So it was obvious to me at the time, from an outsider's perspective, that this was a fundamental new way of going about doing IT, particularly in the public sector, given the fairly slow rate of adoption in government agencies of these technologies and new, more modern ways of working and developing systems. So Platform plus Agile is all about the idea that you cannot be agile, and everyone wants to be agile in terms of delivering solutions more quickly. You cannot be agile unless you first start with a platform. And that's the opposite of the way most government IT works. Mostly government IT treats each application, each new business system as a one-off standalone kind of activity where you go to market, you do a procurement, and you allow the procurement process to determine the technology and the vendor and the hosting environment, et cetera. And it's one of the reasons why government agencies end up with very fragmented and unsustainable suites of applications and have a lot of project failures because each project is a kind of one-off mad science experiment.
And
so
keep going. Sorry.
So the method, the Platform plus Agile method, basically says, look, the first thing you need to do is make a strategic commitment to a way of doing things, to a public cloud services platform, to the contracts and the vendor relationships which sit around that, to the skills of an in-house team to know how to do things in that platform, to all of the security templates, et cetera, and a cohort of vendor partners that help you implement in that environment. So if you think of all of that bundle of things as a platform, then when a new application comes along, the decision process is which of my available platforms is the best one for this use case. And then you just do a project and reusing ways of working, skills, etc. Plus, increasingly in these public cloud services platforms like Microsoft Azure, then we're also building microservices in the platform, which we reuse from one project to another. So each project becomes less and less and less custom build, if you like, or new investment, and more about reusing things that already exist, either in the platform or in our own solution environment.
Yeah, right. So the reuse of the platform, Steve, is that something that you envisage other departments can use, or is it more tailored towards your department?
No, it's at the moment it's tailored towards our department, but the thing in this space is that if you're using public cloud services platform, Salesforce or ServiceNow or the Microsoft cloud platforms, then anything you build in that that is new or a significant configuration of it is also available to other agencies because they have the same ubiquitous ability to access the platform as we do. So there's a lot of reuse potential and efficiency in this whole approach, and it's delivered quite spectacular results for us in DHHS. There are more than 35 new business systems that have been implemented this way over the last 3 or 4 years, and some of them are very large, mission-critical applications with sensitive data in multi-agency information sharing scenarios. So it's been a very, very good story in terms of empirical proofs, if you like, of the benefits of this way of doing it. And there's quite a few stories on my LinkedIn profile if anyone wants to just look me up on LinkedIn. In the articles, there are quite detailed descriptions of some of our projects. And actually, the application development manager, Ray Baird, won a public service medal in the Queen's Birthday Honours recently for the work that he's done leading these programs of application development work.
Yep. Yeah, great. And like security obviously is a big, cybersecurity is obviously a big touch point in the gov sector at the moment. There's lots of talk in the media, and governments responding in various different ways. Just quickly, is that part of your strategies built into there somewhere?
Yeah, of course. So it's our view, and based on pretty firm evidence over a large number of projects, that these public cloud services platforms now are the most secure platforms that we have available to us. The problem in government generally, but particularly in state government, is that we have fairly severe financial constraints on our capacity to invest, and then it's a very difficult task to maintain the funding for investment over long periods of time. And in a traditional way, this has always led to unsecure and dysfunctional systems, because even if they start out being good, they over time degenerate because there is insufficient funding applied to their sustainment and upgrades and enhancements.
And
so the problem with all of that is it creates security risk.
Yep.
So one of the huge benefits of these public cloud services platforms is that they are secure, and we test that rigorously against all of our security requirements, which come from the Commonwealth Government in terms of the Information Security Manual and all of the standards and guidelines. We make sure they are secure and they're all penetration tested and evaluated. And then they, by and large, more so than for on-premise technologies, they stay secure because the vendors are making massive investments in R&D to make sure that to the fullest degree possible, those platforms are as secure as they can be made. And we simply then just have to be a consumer of these very secure platforms in the way that they were designed to be used. And if we do that, then our starting security posture is much higher, and our confidence in the security posture going forward is much, much higher than if we had to sustain that infrastructure and those upgrades on our own.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, and in terms of funding, Steve, in the government sector, that can always be a hard part of a role as a CIO, and and priorities of that funding. Do you see down the track more funding coming from the federal government and helping around that security space, or is it are you taking it locally and funding a lot of that yourself?
Most state government applications are funded from within state government budgets.
Yep.
So,
okay.
To some degree, we use shared services provided by the Commonwealth. Yep. And an example of that is that we use MyGov for some aspects of authentication of some of our systems. We also use the GovCMS, which is provided by the Commonwealth. Yep. So we do inherit some shared services, but by and large, funding of state government systems is entirely funded from state budgets.
Yep, great. And with mobility, Steve, staff being able to work from home and log in or work anywhere, that type of arrangement, is your department very savvy in that space?
Yeah, so we have there are policies which drive mobility in the workforce, work from home, flexible working arrangements, and this has been a big drive of the Office 365 project. So more flexible working enabled by the use of the fact that the environment is seamlessly available on mobile devices, the same as a desktop device, so smartphones and tablets, etc. Yep. And also intrinsically the use of technologies like Skype and Teams, which provide pretty seamless video conferencing, audio conferencing, team meetings, and the ability to share slides, PowerPoint presentations, share content, and also collaboratively edit documents and that kind of thing. So the new technologies genuinely do change the way people can work from any location and still have a fairly rich collaboration, connected working experience.
Great. And after this platform plus agile strategy, what do you see a future past that? How long will this particular strategy take?
Well, this is a way of driving digital transformation.
Right.
So we have a very large backlog of digital transformation initiatives that are required to be done, and some of those are upgrades and modernizations of existing systems. Some are net new applications that arise from government policy programs and service delivery reforms. So it's a long pipeline of activity for us. So the key thing with Platform plus Agile is that it doesn't mean that we still don't do what you might regard as procurement plus waterfall projects, because some projects do still require that waterfall discipline and the large-scale procurement. For example, an upgrade of our Oracle financial system is one that we are about to go out to market for, and that's not going to be an agile project, probably.
Exactly.
But the Platform plus Agile method is essentially a way of just increasing the productivity, the cadence of our application development activity. And cadence is the most important thing for us, because of the complexity of the policy and service delivery operational environments that we have. The most important thing to manage complexity is to be able to deliver a new solution quickly and early, in order to be getting direct user feedback from people that are using the application, because it's only then that you know whether all of your assumptions about business requirements and functionality are correct. So Platform plus Agile is essentially a strategy about increasing cadence and productivity of application development, so that we can churn through a big pipeline of work as efficiently as we can, and turn it from being traditionally what government tended to have was a smallish portfolio of individually large high-risk projects. And we've turned that on its head, and we now have a very large portfolio of over 100 individually quite small projects. Maybe $1 or $2 million is a biggish chunk of work. And we can churn through that portfolio and deliver results to a high cadence, and it reduces the cost and risk and flexibility of the overall program.
Right. Great. Now, not many people know, Steve, that you were a search and rescue mountaineer back in the day. Do you think there's any similarities to this and rescuing big IT projects?
Yeah, I used to be a search and rescue mountaineer from Mount Cook National Park in New Zealand when I was a student at university. Now, so that's, you can say that sort of role is just all about lots of really hard work building capabilities, which are not necessarily that often called upon. And so there's a lot of work grinding away, building capabilities and training, and that's followed by occasional moments of stark terror in a real situation, and then the satisfaction of a successful rescue, and at least some of the time. So maybe there are some aspects of that which are the same. A lot of time building capabilities, occasional moments of stark terror, and the satisfaction of the occasional rescue.
Very good. Now, we have a segment called the Goodsy's Fast Four, Steve, and basically it's a segment where we ask four questions in 30 seconds. So you ready to go?
Yeah.
Get in the hot seat.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, your time starts now. What's your go-to order at your favourite restaurant?
Lamb Sagwala.
Lamb Sagwala, great. And what do you wish you had known when you started out in this role?
How much fun it was going to be.
And what's something you've failed at?
Becoming a .com billionaire.
And what are you curious about right now?
Look, just how we can accelerate the propagation of digital solutions across our fragmented health sector.
Great. Thank you very much. Well, that's all for today's episode of the Goodesy. Thanks for listening, and thank you to Steve for joining me today. Join us again next week when we bring another CIO to the Goodesy podcast and find out how they are making a difference to this world we live in. See you then.
Hit it! That's what I'm talking about.
Wait! Okay, now, from the beginning.